Today is day 86 of the Arukh HaShulchan OC. If you would like to sponsor, be willing to sponsor a upcoming shir or more of the Arukh HaShulchan OC, it would be very much appreciated. Please contact me directly. Today we're doing Siman Nun Gimel, Sif Chad Beis, through Siman Nun Gimel, Sif Lamed. So we're talking about the halachos of Shliach Tzibor. Elim no Shliach Tzibor api almus. You should not appoint a Shliach Tzibor based on the power. Misore ear from the officials of the city, which means the non-Jewish officials. Even though most of the tzibur wants him. Also, a person is not allowed without the will of the tzibur. Anybody that takes of the amud with strength, with their hamus and with violence. Don't answer Amidu's brachos. And yesh for Yerushalayim, and a person who has Yerushalayim, yivrach me'amud, he should flee from the amud. Because even a few people don't want him. Words to live by. Any mitzvah which comes by a machlokas is not a mitzvah. Worth repeating. Kol machlokas mitzvah shiba machlokas ain't a mitzvah. Don't fight to fulfill a mitzvah which is not incumbent specifically upon you. Eating kosher in the Beis HaMikdash was a great mitzvah. Nevertheless, we learned that belechem aponim, where lechem aponim was distributed, where there was a wild dash for the lechem aponim, the humble people would withdraw their hands from the division in Miskotatim if there was a fight about this. This they said, anybody who measures out their pathways merits and sees the salvation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You could pay, or you can get it for free. Best to pay for the Shliach Tzibor. Another phrase to repeat from today. Wow, every mitzvah is done better when you spend money on it. Kol mitzvah yoser tov k'shemotziin olav mos, which may well be a direct hint to sponsor Arukh HaShulchan OC shir. Be that as it may. Besides that, there's another good reason. The Keshu b'schar. If you're being paid for it, you're more likely to do the work properly. In this case, continue the work. And then when somebody's being is a salaried position, somebody who's not worthy is not going to have the temerity to try to seize the chazonos. But when he's doing it for free, it doesn't really seem that it's his personal appointment, that of the appointed Shliach Tzibor. You pay him off from the community chest. Even though the community chest has much more money from a rich person than a poor person, and the Shliach Tzibor is motzi both of them equally, and therefore the payment should have been divided up equally, not based on wealth. Nevertheless, the hand of the ani is not as capable of being opened widely as that of the rich person. It's inevitable that the rich person is going to pay more and the poor person less. Some will say that half of the salary of the chazan is determined by wealth, and half according to head tax, poll tax, which is the same for everybody. And that is, the Ramah says, is the minute in the congregations. The Arukh HaShulchan says, no, this is just a compromise. Let's say like a minhag in our time and in place, we don't have that minhag. And we pay up constant regular salaries from the community chest. And we know that the money collected from the community chest is gauged by wealth. And those says Arukh HaShulchan is true for any appointment in our community. Rabbanim, Dayanim, V'Shamoshim. Rabbis, judges, and beadles. Beadles with a D. That's a good word for member for Shamash. Porin Schiros Me'akupa. We pay their salary from the community chest. And the income of the community chest is according to each and every person's income. Mr. Brewer brings that from the Darkei Moshe that this minhag, which is half by the Nefashos, and also that interesting idea, from every marriage he should get something according to the dowry. And it says here half of this half of the marriage should be paid. In other words, he is going to be paid for his services at the chasta, so half of it should be 50-50, and half of it should be according to wealth of the two sides of the shidduch. The Vush writes in the place where there's no minhag, you should go according to the wealth. Dr. Moshe says even the poskim who paskin that you go according to wealth, that's for yamim no roim. But for the schiros for the entire year, we don't go according to wealth alone, but rather 50-50. Again, all these are takonas atibur which can fluctuate and vary from place to place, depending on what the customs are. I assume that today the shul tibur is paid by the shul, and that the shul obviously has membership, which is officially supposed to be the same for everybody, but not necessarily so, depending on sliding scales. I don't know what the details. I'm sure every shul is different. Chavt up, Mokum Shein Shatz, a place where there is no Shliach Tzibur. It's staying b'chol or by us on a weekday. Shein Shatz Mispal Mishirtza. When Shliach Tzibur doesn't daven specifically, anybody wants to daven. Lo Yispal Rak Hamutzalam. Still, the person who daven should be somebody who's acceptable to people. Klein Afa Pisha Ian Kaddish. Kodem Mishameslo Avim. Even though in terms of the hierarchy for Kaddish, somebody who is an Avelos for father and mother comes first. Become a come. Nevertheless, the Tefillah B'fnei Amud. The there's dying for the Amud. Even though there's a custom for people in Avelus and people have yortzites to daven for the Amud, v'tikun gadol nishmas hames, which is palel kara ui. There's a good tikkun for the good fixing for the neshama of the deceased when the davening is appropriate, when he davens appropriately. Come ein lo din k'tima l'inyan zeh. They must not give him a preference in terms of holding the Amud, even on a weekday. The Mishnah Berurah is more open-minded, I guess. That's not the right term. But as he says, it's a mitzvah for the kohol to allow the arbel to daven. And it's a nachasur to the mace, and it saves him from judgment in Gehenna. So it's not as stark as the Arukh HaShulchan on this point. Back to Arukh HaShulchan, Zesh Chaz Rabbeinu Beis Yosef B'Sib Chav Yimach Echad Rotzeh Lomar Tefillah B'Shil Aviv. So he says, right, one, somebody wants to say tefillah for his father. Echad Rotzeh Lomar B'Shil Acher, and somebody else wants to say the tefillah for somebody else. Mishi Yirtzah Kol Sheyomar Tefillah Hu Yomar. It's up to the congregation to decide who should do it. Again, Mishnah Berurah here has some more leeway. He says it's possible that in terms of Ma'ariv, the call cannot impede the Avil from davening. Yes, because Ma'ariv did not require as much chazonis, no chazonis or shots. So therefore, it's only shacharis where they can impede, not arvis. Back to Arukh HaShulchan. And so too in places where the moel takes preference over the Avil on the day when he's performing a bris. The tzibur wants the Avil, and they go with the Avil over the moel. The yortzei koydem lamoel. The yortzei has preference to a moel. Im etzel tzibur shneim sham, as long as by the tzibur they are both equivalent. And he says, "Etzleinu ein aminig shem misvim moel ispalo." By us, in contemporary times, there is no minhag for moel to daven. Rak minagim v'charos pasuk achar pasuk. He responsibly leads the charosim or bris, and I think that minhag has also become more and more rare in our day and age. Chafei. Tzibur who are not able to daven on their own. And they need a shliach tzibur to promote them each and every day, which again is very rare in our day and age. If I don't think I've ever encountered such a situation, they have to hire a chazan. The Kovin says and they compel each other to participate. And even the minority can compel the majority. So too, they can compel each other to hire a rav, la roslem, a rohos, iser at there, to paskin for their matters, which are what is also what is mutter, the sharing yonim and other matters as well. If they need both a chazan and a rav, what goes first? They know the masegas like the bracha, they can only afford one of them. If the rav is a great Torah scholar and he is a well-known rav who is to be reliable and conversant with psak, a rav kodem, the rav comes first. If not, a shatz kodem. Just every Rabbi Tom, Rabbi Dick, and Rabbi Harry doesn't take precedence over a shatz. Since the community can't daven on its own, it needs the shliach tzibur to a certain large extent more than the rav. So from shatz yispalel ba'adam b'chol yom, and they hire shatz which can daven for them every day. And Arukh HaShulchan ends like we said before, but Sleinu lo shayach klal din zeh. By us, such a thing is not relevant because today everybody knows how to daven. But Rab Tomei Kodem, and therefore the rabbi's appointment comes first. Chavav, ein misalkin chazan b'yumuna so. You don't remove a chazan from his craft, elin kenim tabo psul, unless you find something pasul bad about it. Was a pasul, and then he is invalid. Ad sheyos shuba tshuva, until he does tshuva, v'yanika l'chol sheshab, and it'll be everybody recognize that he did tshuva. Ein misalkin so mishum rino and ba'alma. You don't remove him just because there's some sort of rumor and gossip going on. Well, shetzlav kol shin, such as that people say that he snitched to the government about something, or nitpasim kutis, or he's caught with a non-Jewish lady, etc. We don't take that rumor, that voice literally into account. Until the witnesses come and testify to this. Now, still, if the rumor is really, really, really strong, Yoshiva based in Al-Kochal, Livadam Korakol, the based in they have to convene a based in to investigate the source of this coal and then make a decision. The Mishnah says, it seems to say in a regular call you also do that, but I'm sure that in the final analysis the parameters are the same. It's got to be a strong rumor, not just a idle chatter. Shliach tzibur is also shochet, another communal post. Although he didn't mention back then how we pay shochet, I'm sure it comes up here or there. He writes, we shouldn't daven with garments which are full of excrement and are rancid, as shoftim normally do. If he doesn't want to change his clothing when he davens, so remove him from his post. In general, somebody who is a shochet should keep his work clothes at work. So to who uses foul language or sings inappropriate secular songs. We can protest that he shouldn't do this. If he does not listen to us, so we remove him. Chav Zayin, Kasser Rabbeinu Ramah. The Ramah writes, Chav Hey, Shachi's Kim Rotzalim knows Benolis Sayol Prokim. Tibur became older and wants his son to help, his son to be appointed to help him occasionally. Abishen Kol Benok Arevke Kolo, even though the son's voice is not as sweet as the father's voice. In Malem Makamo V'Chosharvim, if he's just as good as the father and everything else. But no Kohen Makol Adam, his son comes first. And the community cannot protest him taking on his son as the assistant, as opposed to somebody else. These are specifically Parsha Shoitim, Manarich Yamim, who will not be care of Israel. Arukh HaShulchan notes that we know that in the Sifri it says, he and his children should have long reigns amongst the Jewish people. Uvanav, and this is to refer to the rise in this pasuk in Dvarim Yud Zayin. So it derives who Ubanav, he and his son. Shemeis beno omei tachtov. Not that if he dies, his son takes his place. Any ela zebilvad. How I know this only maybe this only applies to a king. How do we know that all Jewish leaders, their children take their places? Talmud Lama Bekerev Yisrael, amidst the Jewish people. Kol Bekerev Yisrael, but no made tachtav. Anything amidst the Jewish people, his son takes his place. Akan Lashono. V'akavana shebno mamalei makomo. Obviously, the intent is where the son fills that role. V'nei din ze shrabeinu Ramah b'tshuvas Rashba. This the din of the Ramah comes to Tshuvas Rashba. Ve'vi b'sod bar mi'asifri sheben l'siul. And at the end of the Tshuvas Rashba, it brings down this Sifri. V'ikar Tshuvas Haisa. The primary catalyst for his tshuva was was that the minhag in these places where the Rashba lived was to have this take place. Shabeni Mali Makam Aviv, that the son should fill the place of his father. Shekachi Nuimo. And this is the condition that with which they hired the Chazan. B'sheila Zu Sham, in that question which the Rashba is dealing with. Shemishi Yitzei Kachle Ezerlo, that somebody, whoever the shots wants to take in his old age to help him, he's allowed to do that. And then they would accept that Shliach Tzibor to be the Shliach Tzibor. They accepted that Shliach Tzibor for his entire lifetime, a lifetime contract, which is impressive for a Chazan, and therefore these were the terms, Ayin Sham. But the Ramah doesn't write that there was a contract here involved. Why does he ignore the fact it was a contract? Says really the words of Sifri are not relevant to hiring a Shliach Tzibor or a Rav. Sifri is talking about Parnasim who have honorary positions. But when the Tzibor hires a Shliach Tzibor as a salaried position, doesn't mean his son comes first. They say, we want to pay you, not your son. Somebody have a chazak on my money. We know that the Gemara says that if somebody pledges a dowry to his son-in-law, and before they get married, and right after they get married, the son-in-law dies, and his daughter falls to the Yavam, to the brother, Torah Gazer came, which the Torah said has to happen. We learned in Masach Shuvah, I want to give to your brother. You, I can't give it. So this is true about people who make a contract with a Shliach Tzibor with a Rav. That they'll pay him X amount every year. No. How do you compel them to pay the son? Even if he fills his far position. So it was a limited contract by a certain amount of years. Therefore, the Rashba only gave the shots his demand because of that was their minhag in that place. So only just as a boost, so to speak, he brought down the Sifri. So therefore, it says Arukh HaShulchan Achap, and then explain the Ramah. He only wrote this halacha that the child comes first when the father dies. The rak b'zeh posak, only that is psak applies that, and also k'shemina sochol chayav, and that's also specifically in case where he had a lifetime appointment, or feel we know his money, even he got a time appointment. But the minhag in that is that at the end of the time they just automatically renew the contract. In which case it's like a permanent job. And therefore it was implicit that it was as if they made the condition, since he's going to be there for a long term, including his old age, that it was just like other people get old or ill occasionally. Shekachel Ezek could be returned, that he can take on an assistant. But the male should know call them ksheroy lekach. Now we understand, of course, yes, the son comes first when he's appropriate, but that's as long as the father is alive. Avok shemes, I made a mistake beginning of the sif. Sorry. Let's go back to the beginning of the sif. Chavtes. He didn't write, the Ramah did not write this halacha where the son, where the father dies. When the father dies, you don't have to take the son. Only in this case, he passed in this way. When he appointed for the entire life, or even for a certain amount of time, but that's the custom, that you don't remove him at the time and the contract, and it's like basically like a permanent salary position. So therefore, it's as if they make a condition implicit that when in his lifetime he is going to need assistance because he's going to get old or sick. If he can take an assistant based on what is most comfortable for him. So obviously, his son comes first if he's worthy of that. But when the Shliach Tzibur dies, the tzibur is not required to take the son unless they take a fresh vote and determine him now. Not in case of not because of inheriting the position. The Mishnah Berurah seems to argue here. Mishnah Berurah seems to say that understood the Ramah that even opposed death, the child does take precedence, not just during the father's lifetime. So he did not give this similar interpretation to the Ramah. Lamed, Visvanus Rabbanus. Okay, so what about with rabbis? Maybe even rebbes. Besides the reason which we mentioned, besides the fact that we didn't hire the son, the father, there's no Yerusha, there's no inheritance by Torah. I did not know that the Reish Galusa's son did not automatically take over. What you've seen about Zugos Beperek out the Avos. That you find, and it's just like we find by the Zugos, the leaders in the first parak of Avos, there was not necessarily a relationship between one generation and next generation. So if I made the Chacham Gemara of Rosh Gola, okay, now Rosh Gola obviously doesn't mean Reish Galusa, it means the spiritual head of the Golus. After him came Rav Chisda, after Ravuna Beno, Rabba Bar Ravuna, who was a great Talmid Chacham on his own, and there are many similar cases. So now you ask, obviously, from once Hillel took the position, it did go down to Yerusha until Hillel Sheni. They did that to bulk up the power of the Nesius as an alternative line of succession with its own trappings of a regime to compete with Herod and the other inappropriate secular leaders at the time. Miu, however, says the Arukh HaShulchan, if he is in fact worthy of the father's position, Roy, it's appropriate for the people to seek to take him when his father passed away. Interesting language. That's very appropriate for the progeny of Avraham Avinu. Mishnah brings a machlokes that some say that the person who's in charge of teaching Torah or the dayan, we do not say that their sons take precedence, and there are those who argue. But the Arukh HaShulchan is saying halachically it can't be required, but it's the appropriate thing to do.